All right, let's take a look at Walmart because shares are moving to the upside after the retailer raised its full-year sales outlook, with executives slating a value-seeking consumer. The upbeat outlook coming as investors digested a mixed picture of the U.S. economy and consumer, all ahead of a much-anticipated first rate cut by the Fed this fall. Here to weigh in, we want to bring in John David Rainey. He's the CFO of Walmart, and also joining us is executive editor Brian Sozzi. Great to see both of you. John David, congratulations on another strong quarter here for Walmart. I'm curious, the fact that you raised your estimates here for the full year, what does that tell us maybe about the trends that you're seeing within the consumer and the fact that maybe the consumer isn't as weak as initially feared?
Quarter of outperformance for us financially. We hit the top line at 5% growth, grew our operating income faster at 7.5%, and importantly, we raised our guidance for the year. We've seen consistency with the consumer. If you look at each month of the second quarter, they were all fairly consistent. There was no step down in July as some had expected, and that's generally our outlook for the year. There's certainly reason to be measured in the outlook when you consider that we have an election coming up in the U.S., you've got unrest overseas, but the consumer is still hanging in there. They're being choiceful, they're being discerning, they're looking for value and focusing on those things that are essentials versus the discretionary items. And I think very importantly, they're looking for convenience, and that's something that we're providing better today than we ever have.
John David, good to see you as always. So about 30 minutes after you, in studio, we're going to have the CEO of Chili's, Kevin Hochman. Now, they had a blowout sales quarter. I mean, sales up 15% at Chili's. I mean, that's insane. And I look at your Walmart U.S. results, very, very strong. Is this a consumer in the U.S. that you think is preparing for a recession?
Hard for me to say, Brian. I look at the same economic data that you look at. I can say that within our four walls and digital walls, including that, we know that they're looking for value and that they're still, their dollars are stretched. And so they're focusing on those things that are providing value for them. They're being choiceful when they buy the larger ticket items. And there's also a little bit of a difference if you look at economic data between the cost of food at home versus food away. And certainly that plays to our strengths, and we want to continue to provide that value for our customers.
I wrote a couple hot takeaways, John David, after just going through your report as they hit. One, international business has turned the corner. Walmart keeps taking share from Target. Your e-commerce momentum in the U.S. is off the charts. That has continued. And keep an eye on membership income at Walmart U.S. So, but do you think investors are sleeping out on what you're doing internationally? I mean, this is the second straight quarter of double-digit operating profit growth there. Has that business inflected, and what does it mean to your P&L for 2025?
You're right to mention that, Brian. I think international is one of the better stories going on at Walmart, and it's probably not fully appreciated. We tend to have a very U.S.-focused investor base, and they focus on the U.S. business. But as we noted, even going back last year with our investor community meeting, international is going to contribute more to the top line and more to the improvement in the bottom line over the next 5 years than the rest of the business. What's changed there that I think is different from maybe a decade ago is we really like our footprint. We've focused our strategy. All the markets that we have are contributing to this growth. There's a lot of focus on China. There's a lot of focus on India. These tend to be faster growing, more e-commerce focused parts of our business. But the rest of the portfolio is performing well. Walmex in Mexico is doing very well. And look, it all contributes to the overall enterprise, but it's a fast growing and profit contributing part of our portfolio.
John David, sticking with international and even here in the U.S., when you talk about the risk of geopolitical unrest on an international basis, bringing it back here to the U.S., some uncertainty surrounding the U.S. election, does that pose a risk to Walmart's business, and to what degree?
Well, look, I think consumer confidence obviously has some impact on personal consumption. So yes, there's a risk there, but I think what's important to understand about our business and what we're demonstrating with these results is that we're a business that is positioned to do well during tougher times, maybe more recessionary times. But we're also doing very well in more expansionary times too. And that's because our business has changed. Walmart simply is different today than it was a decade ago. We're providing convenience for customers, and you see that in our e-commerce growth. Brian mentioned the growth in e-commerce. It grew 21% in the quarter. And if you look at all the contributors of our profit improvement year over year, core e-commerce, just the core business, excluding advertising, membership, all the other things that tend to be higher margin, core e-commerce was the biggest single contributor to our improvement in operating income in the quarter.
Yeah, and to that end, John David, it was noted on the earnings release, membership income at Walmart US. Now, investors that have followed your company for decades, that's not a line I think a lot of folks are used to seeing. How big is your membership income business inside of Walmart US? I imagine that's Walmart Plus. And is it fair to say that you're just taking share from Amazon Prime?
Well, we're trying to provide value for all of our customers. Membership is one of the ways that they find that value when they can avail themselves of a monthly or annual subscription and then get items delivered to them. And we see that those customers that are Walmart Plus members shop with us about 3 times more frequently than an average customer. If you take membership and advertising, those two components alone, that's about 20%, over 20% of our operating income today. So large contributors, but it's exactly what we want to provide for our customers, or we see that frequency of visits coming from them.
John David, when it comes to back to school shopping, what kind of trends are you seeing so far? And also just a trend that you have pointed out over the last several quarters when you've been on with us is a higher income consumer, the fact that maybe they are starting to trade down or are trading down just a bit. Is that something that you're consistently seeing?
Well, we don't like to call it trading down. I'd rather say trading into Walmart. There's a lot of things that we provide that they find value in. But back to school is off to a good start. We're still early on. Customers have told us that they're about halfway through their back to school or back to college shopping. And so we still have to wait to see what happens here. But there are categories, stationery is an example, that's off to a very good start. And that tends to be somewhat of a leading indicator for how the rest of the holiday shopping season will play out. So we're excited as we look at the back half of the year. We noted that we raised guidance, passing through the outperformance in the first half of the year. So not to say that there's not reason to be measured with the outlook, given some of the things that you listed earlier, but we're executing. Our business is performing. We're gaining share, and customers, our value proposition is resonating with them.
John David, I didn't tell Shauna this, but I'm looking for a new bright red Transformers backpack for back to school. I mean, now that I have the money to buy these things, I don't have to rely on my parents. I can actually buy a couple of these and just stock my whole house with them. I mean, I'll wear them. It's okay. It's all good.
We're doing a lot of back to school shopping at Walmart. I can tell you that much. All right, John David Rainey, always great to have you. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us here on Yahoo Finance this morning. We appreciate it. And of course, our thanks to Brian Sozzi as well.